people who will come during this session from another conference that the 40 project is carrying out at the moment. They have now finished, and we are expecting more guests to come in the meantime and join. Yeah, sure. So, during this session, we will present you the tools and the methodologies that the EQUAL-IST developed in order to support the RPO, design and implement the gender equality plans. And in the meantime, we will have the opportunity and the honor to get the feedback from the representatives of the two wider networks in Informatics Europe and ACM Europe. We have Erika Abrahams, who leads the Informatics Europe Working Group Women in Informatics Research and Education. WIRE is the common acronym. She was born in Hungary, studied in Germany, received her PhD in Netherlands, and since 2008 she's computer science professor at Aachen University in Germany, and since 2012 she's deputy equal opportunities officer at the university. And you will hear the presentation of the network.
Thank you. Can I have the... How can I switch the slides? Okay, thank you. So hello, everybody, and thank you for the nice introduction. I'm here as a representative of Informatics Europe, and especially I lead the working group that is dedicated to women in informatics research and education. So what is Informatics Europe? It is an association that represents academic and research community in informatics in Europe and neighboring countries. The special aim is not to connect individuals, but to connect institutions. So the members of Informatics Europe are institutions like universities or research centers. So if your university is not yet member of Informatics Europe, then you can consider to apply for membership. There are a lot of advantages, and Informatics Europe try to promote the interest of the members, support them and their activities in research, education and knowledge transfer. And especially in Informatics Europe, the working group for women in informatics research and education would also like to, not to implement dedicated actions, but rather to connect and support existing actions across Europe, including networking. So, for example, connecting activities like the EQUAL-IST, and also try to disseminate and transfer results. And in this working group, we have several activities. So I picked some of them to give you a feeling what we are doing. We established in 2016 an award. It is called the Minerva Award, and it is to make activities at universities and research institutions more visible that aim at increasing the percentage of females in research and education, and also to support them on their career. It is on a 3-year cycle, and this year we have the topic of developing careers of female faculty, and then the next years we go down, so then the postdoctoral phase, doctoral and postdoctoral phase is the next year, and the year after is how to go to high schools and motivate and interest female, so girls in computer science, or also in more general in STEM fields. So the application deadline is the 1st of June. So if at your university you have certain measures that you implemented and which had some impact that could serve as a good example, best practice to others, then please consider to submit an application to this award. This award is handed over at the annual conference of Informatics Europe, ECSS, which will take place in Rome this year. And at this conference, we also have a newly established workshop, VIA workshop, which serves purely the networking of activities. Some of them will also be invited. If you are not invited and would like to attend, because attendance is by invitation, then please send me an email and I can forward you an invitation. So again, it is not for individual participations, but participations of activities. So institutions, or if you have a project or a national network or this type, we are interested in connecting them and on long term creating a platform for exchange of best practices, networking, communication channels, and so on. Then another activity is a booklet. It is a kind of related to your crowd solution, where there are a lot of experiences around in islands, but it is, if someone wants to implement measures, it is good to have something short, pregnant at hand, where you can look up, refresh the ideas or get new ideas what to do to improve the situation. And for that, we created a booklet, More Women in Informatics Research and Education. It is targeted to deans and universities, which measures, mostly easy measures, are there that you can employ or implement to increase the percentage of women. This booklet is also downloadable from the VIA web page. And if you want to have some printed copies, you can also ask me. I'm happy to send you some. And then these two I explained. And if you go one further, then we have a lot of further activities, which I don't have time to talk about, but just to give you an intuition, we would like to increase the visibility of female informatics faculty. You know this problem, you have a conference, what you want to organize, you want to invite a keynote, and no name of suitable women comes into your mind. So it would be good to have a kind of database where you can look up which women are there in Europe in a certain topic, and it is not thought as a force, but rather as a support. This is the same if you want to evaluate a proposal, or if you have an appointment committee and you need some external members, just to have a kind of refreshing who is there. I already told you that we are around to create a communication network for activities, starting with this workshop that we will organize and setting up email list and these things. We support the Women Courage conferences, from which we will probably hear a bit more, and also disseminate that we are there, like I am now here to talk to you and tell that we are there. And we are very happy that you do these activities, and it is really so great to hear what is happening, and so nice results. So thank you all also for being here and everything what you do on top of your everyday duties. It is very much appreciated. Thank you.
Okay. So, moving to the second one, Reyyan Ayfer is working on the Bilkent University in Ankara, Turkey, with a multitude of responsibilities, including teaching and leading academic and administrative activities. Ayfer has held several leadership positions within ACM to improve computer science education and increase the representation of women in the field. She received the Anita Borg Change Agent Award in 2008, and after serving as ACM-W Ambassador of Turkey for 8 years. She's the founding chair of ACM-W Europe and currently vice chair of ACM-W. It's our honor that we hear your presentation.
Thank you very much. It's an honor for me to be here with you today. I would like to understand how ACM is known in this group. Any ACM members? Nice. Better than none, because ACM is not well known in Europe, but we are getting there. And next slide, please. So the goal of ACM is to advance computing as a science and profession since 1947. Oldest, widest, the most influential, premier organization of our, a global organization of our field. And it's a membership organization. And it has lots to cover our field, conferences, digital library, the first ever in the world, many conferences, advocacy for critical public policy issues, and guiding members, and ACM works with volunteers. Yes, and the current situation is in 2009, ACM headquarters is in New York, United States. ACM established its Europe, India, and China councils. And acm-w is also a council of ACM since the beginning of 90s, when we first saw the shrinking pipeline of women in computing. And acm-w is established to support, advocate, and celebrate women in computing. When I became an elected member of ACM Europe, I took the responsibility of establishing acm-w Europe and ran it for 5 years, and now I'm the vice chair of the global acm-w. And we are hoping for a much more global, much more covering acm-w's around the globe. And we don't have a China council yet, but we are hoping for an East Asia acm-w. Yes, we have hopes for. So I'm not going to read the vision, mission, goals and activities because we will be sharing the slides with you. But we want a transformed Europe where women in computing are receiving the value that they deserve. So according to the mission and goals, we decided on some activities like organizing celebrations of women in computing in Europe, supporting chapters, student chapters and professional chapters, establishing friends, like for example, Informatics Europe Wire and acm-w Europe are friends. What do? We help each other to disseminate what we're doing, and we help each other whenever there's a need. National contacts, we want to nominate European women for awards and higher level positions in ACM. Outreach, give out scholarships to female students to attend conferences, celebrations, and participate in EU projects. Thank you very much. It's an honor to be a part. So we called our celebrations, Europe-wide celebrations, Women Courage. The reason is we selected young women who are already in the field as our first target group because we don't want them to drop out. The dropout rate is also huge. So we have been doing this for 5 years. The 6th of Women Courageous this year is going to be in Rome in September. And we had the first one in Manchester, second Uppsala, third Linz, fourth Barcelona, fifth Belgrade in Serbia, which includes hackathons, career fair, panels, posters, keynotes, tech talks, and hands-on workshops to empower, encourage women to stay in the field or select it. At the beginning, when we had acm-w Europe, we had no chapters in Europe, except mine in Turkey. Now you can see the professional and student chapters that are blossoming in Europe. And these are the celebrations that are happening all around Europe. These are regional celebrations, and every region wants to have their celebration in their own language. Europe is very interesting, many cultures, many languages. So they are increasing also. And for outreach, we have a monthly newsletter and social media. The newsletter automatically goes to members of ACM who reside in Europe. It's an opt-in, opt-out. We have LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And our major question is how to enroll men. Because there is a problem that we all know. It's very, very clear, but we cannot solve this all alone because we are few and we need men. For this reason, we started a small activity. We are attending 2 male-dominated conferences. We propose a little workshop where we have case studies from real life. And we have groups of men working on those cases, answering the questions, what are the facts, what are the problems, what could be the solutions. And you know what? It's so interesting that most of them are not aware that these are happening. So raising awareness, we are going a little step further with that. And it's amazing to see so many men at this activity. Thank you very much for being with us and supporting this project. And thank you very much.
So you have heard several times today about the crowd equality platform of EQUAL-IST, and now you will, Elena Gorbacheva from Muenster University will present you.
Thank you. So I would like to tell you a bit about one of the IT artifacts which were developed within the EQUAL-IST project, namely the Crowd Equality Idea Crowdsourcing Platform. And we had this idea during the project proposal stage already, that in designing our gender equality plans, we would like to combine the so-called top-down and bottom-up approach, so that we would like also to include people who have expertise in gender equality or who would be affected by interventions, so staff members and students of RPOs, and let them express their voice and be visible. And we came to an idea that we would like to have a solution, IT solutions on the online platform, which will enable us to do that. So basically the first and main objective of this idea crowdsourcing platform was to enable this participatory co-design of gender equality plan for our project. So very specific, narrow goal. But the platform was also supposed to be wider and in general collect ideas and trigger discussions about the gender equality initiatives and challenges in academia, at universities. And finally, we also thought that crowd equality would become a kind of this inclusive community which will empower men and women to discuss the existing challenges, to propose ideas, and to connect different actors, to connect students, staff members, but also external people who are interested in the topic of gender equality, or maybe also members of NGOs. So, going to the core functionality of the platform supports the collection, dissemination, and discussion of, on the one hand, challenges which RPOs participating in the EQUAL-IST project phase. Challenges in the area of gender equality, but also diversity, work-family balance. So these specific challenges, and also support collection, dissemination, and discussion of potential ideas to address this challenge. And so those which in the end were supposed to become interventions implemented within the project. So within the platform, we had like several steps which we went through within our project. So in the first phase, we have identified and submitted to the platform challenges. So you can see in this diagram there are like this basically five phases, and 4 of them are red, meaning that they can take place on the platform, while what is marked with gray, meaning it is like an offline activity, but which was triggered by the platform. So the first phase, the platform supports the submission of a challenge. So what also needs to be said here is that the platform was launched right at the end of internal gender auditing. So we had also this auditing in place at RPOs. So some challenges were actually identified during this auditing, and then we entered them to the platform. So for each challenge, we had this dedicated form to fill in. Remember, I told you about data structure. The data was entered in a structured way. Additionally, the members of RPOs, so students and staff members, had an opportunity to submit further challenges, which were maybe missed out during the auditing. So you can see that in phase 1, we have people who were eligible to submit a challenge, and because we're talking about RPOs, people who actually faced these challenges, only they were eligible to submit a challenge to the platform. So we had a very sophisticated right management. So when you were registering, based on your email address, people were assigned specific rights, and if they were registered with the university email address, they were automatically assigned a specific kind of category so that they were allowed to submit challenges which they face in their institution, and they were allowed to actually see all other challenges relevant for their institution. While for external users, all challenges were presented in anonymous way. So it was not possible to see which institution faces what challenge due to privacy security reasons, because we are talking about quite sensitive topic, and if there would be a challenge, for example, of sexual harassment, maybe it's better people would be not willing to reveal it if it would be clear which institution faces it. So that's why we kept it anonymous to the outside, but visible to the internal, so-called internal crowd, so students and staff members of a specific RPO. The next step, it was in the previous, now we're talking about phase number 2. Phase number 2 was opened to everyone. There we wanted to collect ideas to address these identified challenges, and there we basically invited the whole world. So it was open to everyone to submit, to propose ideas, to like ideas, to comment on ideas, also to comment on the challenges, and that's something which everyone, so also the so-called external crowd, so users of from other RPOs, but also really people who are outside the project, those who are interested in gender equality topic, could all contribute there. The next phase, it's phase number 3, review and selection of feasible ideas. And in the platform, we had an algorithm to do it kind of in an automatic way. Within the project, though, it was done in a way partially manually. So what was done? We could make an expert of all the content for each RPO. So basically all the challenges, all the ideas, all the comments for each RPO, and shared this information with our partners, with working group members, who then had an opportunity to review this content and actually try to understand, oh wow, we have now a lot of ideas, which of them would actually be feasible to implement? And then they kind of communicated to us which of these ideas are feasible, and we marked them as those which are eligible to enter the phase number 4, which is a voting phase. So where also again, the whole world was invited to vote on this pre-selected ideas, upvote or downvote, if they like it or they don't like it. And then in the analytics, it was possible to see how many votes came from internal crowds, so from the members of the RPO, and how many votes and what votes were from external crowds, so from external members. And then for the winning ideas, so for those ideas which collected the highest numbers of upvotes and lowest numbers of downvotes, for them, RPOs had developed the so-called implementation plan, or so how these ideas could be then transferred actually into reality, and this then kind of flew into the gender equality plans and formed the basis of gender equality plans. So that's what we call phase number 5. So operationalization of ideas and then their implementation, which was then done into iterations. And you could see some examples in the previous sessions, what were like exemplary actions which were done within the project. So that's in a nutshell the methodology. If we go to some statistics, so we had in total 331 users who registered to the platform, and in total 54 challenges and 104 comments to them were submitted, as well as 91 ideas and 75 comments to the ideas. So the numbers are kind of high, but maybe it could be higher, so maybe that's something we could discuss, and there are reasons why they are like they are, and maybe we can discuss it later on. So here is how the platform looks like. It's like a homepage. You can still access that at www.crowdequality.eu. However, I need to let you know that the platform was turned to the static mode after the active phase. So once we were done with this crowdsourcing exercise, we had to put it to the static mode because there was no opportunity for us to moderate it, because you need to moderate on a daily basis, maintain it technically, and so now it's the kind of plain HTML page, so you can still see all the content which was submitted there, but it's not anymore possible to contribute. But the full platform code was uploaded to the GitHub repository, so everyone is welcome to use it and to maybe bring this platform back to life, because there are lots of ideas, lots of also on conceptual level ideas. So if you have interest, let me know. It would be fantastic. All right, to sum up, the platform allowed collection of the challenges and potential ideas to address them. Users then could vote on the pre-selected feasible ideas, and then the RPOs developed action plans for the implementation of the winning ideas, which then formed the basis of gender equality plans. And final slide. So basically the main advantages, of course, the gender equality plans which were designed within the EQUAL-IST project were kind of like, it triggered creative ideas, just because we had more brains involved in proposing the ideas, more people were involved in this activity, so it triggered creativity, of course. Also, crowd equality allowed the voice of people who are directly affected by the challenges, so allowed their voice to be heard. So this so-called bottom-up approach. And it was actually also very, very important to involve this group of people. And finally, the platform itself was a tool to raise awareness and to raise awareness about the topic of gender equality, because it was disseminated on the website of the RPOs. People were invited to contribute to the platform. It was actually explained what the platform is all about, why we do it, why it's important to contribute to it, and it was done basically in 2 iterations, to submit the initial challenges and ideas, and then to also vote on the ideas. And finally, the platform was also a kind of dissemination tool for the project, because we always mentioned that it's done within the EQUAL-IST project, and also it made our project more visible. So that was it from my side. Thank you very much for your attention.
Claudia Canali from University of Modena, Reggio, Emilia will present a participatory audit methodology that small, medium-sized ICT institutions can adapt to their needs.
Thank you. So, the University of Modena was in charge during the EQUAL-IST project to define a participatory audit methodology that has been used in all our organizations. So to set up this first step that started all the process of auditing and that then ended up in the crowdsourcing platform that Elena just mentioned, and to continue with the JAP implementation. So a little bit of pressure on us to define this initial important tool. There was maybe that was not the yes, I'm sorry, this is the first one. So we started from existing tools and methodologies for gender audit. Especially we started from the participatory gender audit of International Labour Organization, because we had already stated in the proposal of the project this idea that was an innovative idea to follow a participatory process also during the audit. And so that particular methodology of ILO was recognized as one of the more complete and well-structured methodologies. So we started analyzing these tools, and then also the adaptation of the Janice Lab FP7 project, plus more other existing tools that we took inspiration from, coming from other projects of that kind, or institution, or the She Figures report. But we had the need to adapt these methodologies to our project, to our contest, to the specific context of our LPOs that are small, medium-sized LPOs working with a specific focus on ICT and IST. The adaptation need came from, first of all, from the intervention area, the 4 intervention area that we selected initially. From the beginning, that were teaching and student services, research content delivery, HR management processes, and institutional communication. And then the other big requirement was to adapt the methodology in a way that people from the working groups and the research team in these RPOs, so people that with a background in ICT, basically, so no specific gender background, were able to carry out without external expertise. So we need to simplify these methodologies and to adapt to this context. So we proposed a mixed strategy for our methodology. So based on one side, on a quantitative approach, so to have gender indicators computed based on gender disaggregated data that were being collected and analyzed. And we stressed a lot this quantitative approach along, as let's say, within this methodology that has a participatory approach on the other side, because we found that important to have measurable information that could support also monitoring and evaluation and comparison between different institutions and between different levels, so between also different geographical levels, so local level versus national and European level. And we found that that quantitative approach is, let's say, sound and credible, especially in environments that are highly male-dominated, and so we stress also this part. But the other part was consisting in participatory tools, so qualitative tools, and there were basically individual semi-structured interviews and participatory workshop like focus groups with preliminary questions for the participants. So that part, the participatory part, especially, was really important to start a self-reflection about gender dimension in our institution, because as I said before, there were institutions that never implemented gender equality plans. So that was really important to raise awareness and to start the self-reflection about the issues that were in place about gender equality. Next, thank you. Briefly speaking about the quantitative indicators that we included in this gender audit methodology, we collected data about different group of people. So a specific focus for students, because we saw the gender gap in the student population was a big problem for ICT RPOs, and both academic and non-academic staff. And different categories of indicators were considered, including gender equality indicators, so let's say traditional representation index for position areas like glass ceiling index, just to mention one of them. A degree of work-life balance, so measures like teleworking and facilities for childcare and so on. And also the presence or not and the structure and the functioning of equal opportunities machineries dedicated to gender equality. And we developed these quantitative indicators to provide different degrees of comparability, as I said before, between departments and university and the local, national, and European level. For the quantitative indicators also, and I underlined that to underline how we try to simplify the methodology for the RPOs, we also provided Excel templates to facilitate data collection and analysis. The participatory tools were the interviews to key people in the different areas, so manager, decision makers, and on the other side, workshops, participatory workshops with the slide before, thank you. With academic staff, non-academic staff, research staff, I mean both academic and people working in the research offices, and students. That was basically done also to match the mix of top-down view given by the interviews and the vision of the key managers and the bottom-up view given by the people involved in the workshop. Then a final workshop was envisioned, and I underlined that the institutional communication was considered like a cross-topic covering all the involving, let's say, all the people, so was covered in each workshop. And just to understand what the thematic workshop were about, we give a practical and precise indication to each RPO on how to structure each thematic workshop. Before the workshop, some questions were submitted to the participant online just to understand the initial vision about gender inequalities or equalities in the institution, and also to pose a baseline for the discussion during the focus group. And we give precise indication about the number of involved people, how many people to invite, how to select the people, just to, of course, to balance gender, but not only gender, age, and other characteristics of the participants, with the final goal, the overall goal, to facilitate an open discussion during the focus group. Next, please. And we identify precise exercises. Some of them are an adaptation from the ILO PGA. We identified 2 core mandatory exercises in each thematic workshop. The first one was generically a gender-focused group, where basically a discussion took place on gender-related topics that emerged from the questionnaires or from the interviews, just to start raise awareness and start self-reflection between participants to understand their opinions. And then we had also an exercise called a historical timeline, where basically we started a discussion on the main events and policies that were put in place in the last years at our institution. That to understand also in this case the perception of the participant, and also start a reflection on possible new policies, possible so actions that could be put in place and their feasibility, applicability to the institution. Then we have also optional exercises. I will not go into the details for time reason, but just to underline that we put in these optional exercises with the constraint to carry it out at least in 2 workshops of one exercise on institutional communication analysis, where we invite the participant to revise some documents of the official communication, so website, newsletters, posts on social channels of the institution to understand if they were gender sensitive in terms of language and visual communication. So that part was optional with the purpose to be adaptable and flexible because every RPO had a different context, different situation. So we wanted to stress the flexibility of this tool. So the selection of these exercises was left to the, let's say, discretionality of the gender audit team in each RPO. And then a final workshop to conclude with all the participants of the previous workshops with the goal of course, sharing the results, but to start understanding some possible solutions. So identify the challenges and start designing some possible solutions, suitable solutions that both challenges and ideas were then uploaded to the crowdsourcing platform that Elena presented before. So the next, please. As a conclusion, I wanted to stress that also the design of this methodology was, let's say, a participatory process itself, because actually we proposed a first version of the methodology, but then we had with the partners 2 capacity building sessions to present the core elements of the methodology, to collect input and feedbacks from the partners, to adapt it in a second version, and also to train, of course, the partner to implement at their own institution this methodology. So it was it started, let's say, a gender training approach within the consortium. At the end, we think we ended up with a simple and flexible tool. Simple because, as I said, the need was to simplify that in terms of expertise required and also of time, because it should be feasible to carry it out within research institutions, and also a flexible approach because it was really adaptable to different contexts and different situations, depending also from the initial situation of in terms of awareness and gender knowledge of the staff in each institution. As a final consideration between, let's say, pros and cons of this approach, I think from the positive side, it was really an effective methodology to raise awareness, to start self-reflection, to involve many people into the discussion, to start also working together with colleagues, understand who was interested in that. At least in Modena was like that, and I know in many institutions of the consortium. Maybe, if I have to identify, let's say, a negative part, is that asking solutions to people that are not expert in gender may lead maybe to some lack. For example, in our consortium, as we said before, we didn't have many actions on the research design area. And probably because not being expert in these topics, that was not recognized as really a big issue in this part, and so we didn't end up with this as a challenge, and so with solutions. So that was my presentation. Thank you for the attention.
So moving to the last tool we developed, it is the online EQUAL-IST Toolkit. Agostino Cortesi is the Vice Director of the Department of Informatics, Statistics and Environmental Sciences and former Vice Rector of University Foscari in Venice. Would you like to see?
No, I can stay.
All right, give me one moment.
Yeah, 5 minutes to the coffee, okay. Yeah, we have also the, yeah. Okay, let me present very quickly this toolkit that actually what has been presented so far by Claudia and Elena are tools that have been designed to support our project mainly. Both on the crowdsourcing activity and on the methodology, evaluation methodology activity. This third tool has been designed as a dissemination tool. Our question was how we can provide an instrument that may allow people outside mainly of the consortium to keep the best practice and inspirational examples, data that may support new actions in terms of gender equality in ICT institution. And in that respect, what we decided to do is to elaborate a sort of blog that has as a goal the elicitation of good practices, examples, and on the other side, having as a target not just the RPOs involved in the project, but most of all people that are outside in the large community of possible actors of initiatives of this kind. So let's say that this is something that we would like to keep on working as a blog, and that has as a particular feature the fact that we are not just exposing results of our project, but we are also trying to collect examples and good practices that comes out of other projects. So I encourage all of you to use the toolkit and to use it in an active way. The toolkit, as I told you, is a structure as a blog, so we have the possibility to navigate the blog, to interact with social media, so Facebook, Twitter, and so on. The possibility to insert new posts, the possibility to register, so we have different roles. And what is important is that we structured the posts on different areas in order to facilitate as much as possible the identification of where a good example, an inspirational case may apply. So the governance and decision-making bodies, the HR issues, the teaching and student services, what is about gender equality in research, what is about gender equality for institutional communication. These are the 5 areas we structure where each post may belong, and plus go back, yeah, back, not back. Yeah, and then we have these gender disaggregated data. So the possibility to give data that support initiatives. I think that this is another important thing, because it's true that we cannot just rely on data, but we need also data to support, in particular, the evidence of the impact of the single initiatives. You may do a search based on the categories. Okay, so if you select a category, then go on. Yep. Then you may get the posts that are related to that category. And then we have another direction for search that are linked to tags. So every post, so every good practice is not just linked to an area, but may also tell which kind of contribution is. It is a rational, it is a tool, it is a guideline, it is a good practice, okay? And also on tags we can make a search. We can go on. Yes, so every post basically has a title, a category, it has a content, it can be tagged, it can be linked to social bar, and that's important, it's an interactive tool, so we can, of course, if you are registered into the system, and you can do it without any particular effort, you may comment on the post, and you can rate the post based on 3 dimensions that are the relevance, the replicability, and the innovation of the idea. So that's important because in this way we may not just make window shopping available to people that want to keep good practices, but we may also collect feedback out of people about the perceived importance of this good practice. What's nice is that when you are using this kind of instruments, you may also derive analytics, for instance, on the people that connect to the blog, which kind of people involved. So it's a new user or is somebody who comes back to the blog from time to time. And so we are starting from the beginning of December, basically collecting data about it. And final, it's important that we may also see what are the location where from where the user are connecting, and this gives also a perception of the way we can spread this kind of good practice around the world. So in India there is still nobody, okay, but we are aiming to do also to get also there. Yeah, the final thing is that this tool is something that should possibly be increased in collaboration with other initiatives and other actors. It's important the collaboration with the main institution like Informatics Europe, SCM, but we may also think about other possible partners about that. It's important that it's not important the fact that EQUAL-IST produced that tool. It's important that the ideas and good practices that we collected during this project do not finish their lifetime within the project, but they are disseminated. So in this sense, everything which is inside is aimed to be reused, reapplied, possibly embedded in other tools, like for instance the Gear Toolkit, without any copyright or how do you say, need to be recognized as authors of that. So it's basically an instrument that may help the dissemination, that may grow as soon as it is foreseen as a good way also to involve other people into this field. That's it. If you have comments, of course, I'm here. Thank you.
So before I proceed to ask your feedback on particular question, I would like to ask you first if you would like any clarifications on the tools that we presented. Any additional questions?
So how is maintenance for this tool continuous? Who does it?
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I can use this one. So the maintenance in the last one is made by the University of Venice. So we are basically Maria and myself. We are managing that, and we are as I am structured at the university, Maria, let's see. Anyway, there is a guarantee somehow that both at a technical by a technical point of view and by a content point of view, there will be a continuity in that sense.
So, based on your experience, I will pose the same question to both of you. Do you think that the members of your networks would be interested to adapt these tools? What's your opinion? Let's start.
May I use this one?
No, I don't have to do anything.
Erika, would you
Okay.
like? Sorry.
Erika.
Yes, I think definitely. One of our problems nowadays is not so much the absence of information than the amount of information and how to find it. So a lot of you implemented great ideas, but perhaps the others will reinvent the wheel. So I think it is extremely important that sustainability, that we continue and not create just another platforms, but use the existing one. And even if your name is then not so visible because it's not your platform, just use what is there. So I think it is definitely, if we manage to continue the investigation, and if there are people who are willing to do it even without project and without financial support, I think it's extremely helpful.
And Reyyan?
I'm very sure there will be many people who will be interested. So we disseminated EQUAL-IST from the very beginning, using our social media and newsletter, but I have no idea about the impact of that. Maybe we can measure from the toolkit to find out if there are anybody who heard from ACM. One thing I would suggest for the future activities, why not attend to our Europe-wide activities and
the communication is very important from our perspective, so that tools will be used from experts or from ICT institutions. So your recommendation is very useful, that we can describe the impact that we have, and along with the description, explain the benefits for the end users, and with your support.
Yeah, maybe have a little stand at the career fair where you can answer questions, and maybe have some more volunteers to help out with the project.
Yes. Do we have any questions from the audience? No. So about the communication, do you think it's important? So can you elaborate more on a particular audience that we will be able to reach through your networks and the potential?
Yes, one thing I already shared, attending face-to-face is very important. I mean, we share much more than words when we meet face-to-face. So, for example, I wish that we had met face-to-face for a short time at the very beginning, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
It's helping much more to understand and feel internally. What we can do is we have chapters that we reach out. We can do more to disseminate in addition to the outreach tools that we are using for the time being. More personal touch, I'm sure, will help.
Yeah. Reyyan, Erika?
So it is always very hard with dissemination because of the amount of information, but from the side of Informatics Europe, in these networking possibilities and the creation of an international European platform for communication is exactly for this, to tell that things are there. Also on our website, from the VIA working group, we have a collection of existing activities. If you know some which is not there and is relevant, then please also tell me. We are happy to add. And because this is a kind of restrictive and only the larger activities are there. I have on my personal homepage even a more extensive list of all possible activities, also material, videos, newspaper articles, and this stuff that I collect. And I'm very happy. Sometimes I get emails suggesting new entries and also telling that it is very helpful when they want to set up an activity to get an idea what is there. And in this sense, yes, I think that the global organizations, the large organizations, are very helpful in this sense to disseminate and just connect people.
Okay, that's very useful because the EQUAL-IST project will be completed this month. So the continuation will be rely on your support, and the fact that you are here today means a lot of us, and that you will continue to support that, and your members will use that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
thank you very much. I mean,
Thank you.
mission accomplished, so continue with the wishes that we have in our minds.
Yes, we would like
Yeah.
to hear.
Our support is going to be with you.
Ah. Ah. Yes. 15 minutes.
Thank you for your presentations and feedbacks. I wanted to provide some self-reflexive inputs on the way we used, some further self-reflexive inputs on the ways we use these tools during the project, and in terms of transferability and replication to other institutions, some further advice. In the crowd equality, for example, I think that in our case, and the way we complemented it with the participatory gender audit process, thinking about the complementarities between these two methods and tools, and partially also some overlapping, I think that it would be interesting to use crowd equality as a model without or prior to an audit process. Just as an initial step, because in many cases we got as a feedback from our RPOs that, okay, people were already highly engaged into face-to-face discussions within the participatory audit, and then partially crowd equality, the online interaction and the crowdsourcing exercise was perceived as redundant. So it would be interesting for any RPOs who might try to use the crowdsourcing model to test it more from the initial raising awareness phase, so to speak. And about the participatory gender audit methodology, we were discussing it with Claudia during the break, right? And you referred to the fact that, especially for areas where there is really big gap in awareness and knowledge, stimulating participation to such a high extent might become at the expenses of sound proposals for actions or sound ideas for actions. This is actually the case. On the other side, this method, I think, proved to be very effective as a really hands-on training opportunity and learning opportunity for the gender equality plans working groups, who really learned in practice how to, they got in a way much more acquainted with change management skills. Probably the content itself of certain particular areas or tools to be used for achieving gender equality in the specific era priorities was partially penalized, but compensated on bigger learning into really becoming able of having a dialogue with your internal stakeholders, engaging them, steer a change process in your organization. In terms of replicability of this method, I think that we had a critical example with Muenster, right, where it was proved that flexibility was very important also in this case. In your case, you replaced it with a survey, right?
We made a survey because for us it was easier to collect feedback via survey than to actually invite people for a workshop because no one has time for it. Like it was very challenging for us. So okay, we'll make a survey instead. It will be much easier than to engage people to fill in the survey. And then we also managed it on the faculty level. So we got the feedback for our department, but then also did it for the whole faculty. So we had a very comprehensive picture and could understand, okay, what challenges are relevant just for us, for our department, and which of them are relevant for the entire faculty. And then, like it was actually very useful for us, and it resulted in a broader coverage than if we would just make workshops where very few people would attend, because we know it for us it's very challenging to actually motivate people to physically come to specific events.
Sure.
It's
So
always very challenging.
I think that if we should suggest how to reuse it, my suggestion would go to this direction: reduce the number of workshops and introduce some other, ways like methods such as surveys, which do not require face-to-face participation. And back to the networks and the issue of also how to achieve better communication. I think that for our partners, it would be really very important also in view of the continuation and the sustainability of the actions internally already triggered via the project to really become active in the existing networks. For a certain period of time, we discussed it internally. Shall we set up a network on gender equality in ICT research institutions? Then we realized that there are already existing and well-functioning networks, both for individual researchers, such as ECM, and for departments and institutions, such as Informatics Europe. And we started interacting with them more closely, and I think that it would be important also for our partners to join these different subgroups within these networks. Thank you again.
Would you like to wrap up with some information about your networks, Erika?
Perhaps I would like to give some more things for brainstorming. Two points, perhaps, which were partly mentioned, but not so deeply. The first one is rewarding. So it is always the same people who are invoked, and these people, as I said, do on top of their everyday work, how to achieve that activities in equality measures also get more rewarding. I mean, in any sense, whether it is financial compensation for your work, whether it is reduced load in teaching, it is very important to also sensitivize in these directions, that universities are aware that somehow these activities need also be rewarded. And the other point is, it is extremely hard to evaluate such measures. So how do you measure? You can measure the numbers of students, but unfortunately, in Europe, the numbers of female students, for example, in computer science, are stagnating. If we compute the pure bachelor computer science studies, it's around 10%. 10. And since decades, we are doing these activities. So what do we do wrong? Or if we would not do these activities, would these numbers decrease? Mm-hmm. So somehow we still do not know, and therefore I say that the gender studies are very important. So not only doing, but also analyzing what are we doing and what are we doing wrong, because seemingly we do something wrong or do something not so effective as we would like it to be effective. So also from the European Commission or for the national agencies, it would be important to give more budget to this kind of research, or the possibility, for example, for these networking things, it's very hard to get funded. And communication and support action like this gets funding mostly for traveling. It is not for finding PhD students in general. Sometimes you get some months for some development work or something like this, but it is not the real wow support. So it would be very, very important to, if we really want it, that also the agencies devote more space for such projects.
Reyyan?
It will be wonderful to personally share the results of the work that you have been doing so far. The impact, I mean. The impact, maybe how it happened. And did you come out with some outcomes like cultural differences cause different kind of impact? Further analysis, I mean?
In this case, due to the short duration of the project, the impact will be in a long term, in the next years. We can present some figures, but at the moment they will be lower, and beyond the years they will be increased progressively. So the promotion and the adaptations of such tools will contribute to increase the impact.
Yeah, and wherever we go, face to face or online, we're going to share to the 1,000 members. No, 100,000 members of ACM.
And the significant support is that it will not be only at the European level, but it will be broader, global level through your network.
Unfortunately, we have only 12% of ACM members residing in Europe. So we have a lot to do to make ACM much more visible in Europe.
Great. Thank you very much for being here. So we'll have now a short coffee break for 15 minutes, and we will come back for the last panel session with the synergy projects.